this is a lesson for you, America. If you meet me on the street, you interact with me on social media, and you guys who are the hosts, like when you tell me, oh, that joke sucks, I'm just going to lean into it more and more and more and more.
I mean, never make fun of your jokes.
Absolutely, because I was like this as a kid. The minute I was told I couldn't do something, I immediately wanted to do it. The minute I was told, oh, that's no good, my goal is I don't run away. I lean into it further. So yeah, it's not a good joke. No. I asked and answered.
I was being kind to the 3 out of 10.
Yes, I agree with you. By the way, I think you graded too high.
Nice guy.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were definitely the French judge.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry and Jay Croucher. Just leaning into the jokes over there, Matthew.
Always. That's what I do. I believe there's a famous book called Lean In, right? And it's literally, it's called Lean In, and it's about how at the workplace you really should just keep hammering home bad jokes. Oh, really? Literally, that's the entire premise of the book. Just go, trust me on this. If you go look, the book Lean In, it's entirely about that.
Is this Dostoevsky? Tolstoy?
I don't believe it is. No. I don't believe it is. But hey, if you're watching this, and I include you two animals in this, if you are watching this show, it means you have something to play for in Week 15. Well done.
Playoff managers.
Well done. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, it means you have something to play for in Week 15.
Or
so as a result, or you're just a sicko. You're just a crazy Matthew Berry fan. Hi, Mom. But what I would say here is that for the 99.9% of you, it means you're a playoff fantasy manager, and you drink for free at the happy hour today. It has been a long, windy, tumultuous road to get here, and you're playing for something. Congratulations. And that congratulations, by the way, isn't just everyone watching, but also the three of us.
We all made it.
We all made it to the playoffs in our show league.
Now, to be fair, my team is trash, and it snuck in very much. What was the year that Carson Palmer got hurt in the Cardinals, and it was like Ryan Lindley in the playoffs? I'm Ryan Lindley. Ryan Lindley.
There you go. So anyway, here are our playoff matchups. It's a 12-team league, super flex league. As you can see, I do, in fact, have the number 1 seed and the bye with my team live at noon on the cock. And shout out to Dev, who during the draft we could not understand, literally went round after round after round after round without drafting a wide receiver. He literally has Michael Pittman and Rashee Rice. That's his only 2 wide receivers, but they've stayed healthy and productive all year long. He winds up with the number 2 spot there. Connor, you come in at, let's see, backup producer Pete. No Way Monfrey is in 3rd place. Connor, you come in at 4 as Fantasy Life commenter.
Big matchups. Obviously, Pete produces the Tuesday show. Pete will square off against Jay in the quarterfinal, and I will square off against none other than Penn State Blake.
Who? Yeah. That's true. Backup producer Pete is our defending champ who won on a technicality, but whatever. It's fine. You know, we have our own Astros in the league, and the fact here is that, you know, whether it was other producer Adam, main producer Steven, Dan in Mexico, our graphics guy.
The casualties of this league.
The casualties.
Michael Smith.
Michael Smith.
Lawrence.
Last place, Lawrence. Lord don't lose. Lord does lose.
Yes,
Lord in fact lost this one.
Yeah.
At Lord does lose. Lawrence Jackson in last place. Producer Damien, tough year for him in this one as well. Who else am I forgetting? Steven, Adam.
I think you covered.
Did I cover
most
the whole
of it?
Anyway, 12-team league. And 6 of us remain, including the 3 here at the table, which is good because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus unless they work here on the show. It's okay. The NBC Comcast Respecting the Workplace conference call isn't until 2 o'clock.
Yes.
That is true, by the way, and I will be there. But I haven't learned yet Respecting the Workplace, so it's okay to throw like Penn State Blake under the bus. But what I'll say is like my old job we would do shows. I would do podcasts. I would do Sunday shows, and not everyone on those shows would make the playoffs in our show leagues every year. And so we always had to dance around it a little bit. So it's nice that
we experienced this last year where we had to
no
dance around you missing the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
Well, me and Connor were firmly in the playoffs.
That's right.
My team was a juggernaut last year. I had McCaffrey and the Niners at the end. This year it's not great.
Brutal injuries.
I need to get rid of this super flex thing because all my quarterbacks.
I'm starting Mitch Trubisky in the playoffs.
I'm just going to have to start Elijah Moore in my super flex. It's very grim.
So I don't know who it is in our league that has Justin Herbert, but whoever it is it you?
Yes.
Well, Jay, I have bad news because I literally just got an alert from the Fantasy Life app. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert is out for the season following surgery to repair his broken index finger on his right hand per me and Mike Garafolo. Easton Stick steps in for the rest of 2023. Coach Brandon Staley said they would do what's best for him long term. This is it, and that is from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. So NFL Network reporting Herbert out for the year for the Chargers and for can't guard Mike.
To be fair, I'm going to lose this week, so the next 3 weeks don't really matter for me, but that's tough news for Justin Herbert. Not wholly unexpected, but go pick up Easton Stick if you can.
Yeah.
Listen, for all you playoff managers out there, we are going to do waivers today. So we're getting away from the stash because now it's must win, so it'll be a little bit of a different waiver format today. So we'll get there in just a moment, Matthew, but you sounded excited for something else.
I'm just excited about the fact that, yes, I'm in first place in our league
with a bye week.
With
you
a
can
bye
kick your
week.
feet up. You don't even have to be here today.
It's a rest week for all
load
my guys.
management.
Load
is what
management
the NBA calls
is what it is. It's like, and I just hope that I don't. I just hope no one gets injured. I ended up making the people care about this. I ended up making the playoffs. I'm in 17 leagues. I ended up making the playoffs in every single one of them except one. The one that I was texting you, the ones that I've been complaining about for the last 3 weeks. Yeah. I needed a big game from Tyjae Spears last night. This is a team that it's a 12-team Superflex league as well. I lost Mark Andrews and Anthony Richardson in this league. I'm still third in total points, but I was first in points against. 6 teams make the playoffs in this 12-team league.
Oh, this was the de facto playoff this week.
And so I played, the way the schedule worked is I was playing the guy that had the most points in the league. It just has a monster team, this guy John. And in essence, we had the same record, though. We both had some bad scheduling luck, and so it was sort of win and get in. And so I ended up beating him. That last drive, we'll talk about the Titans game, but I had Tyjae Spears. That last drive, basically, I ended up vaulting over him. But what ended up happening is because Mostert had 2 touchdowns and had this crazy game, a team that was supposed to win didn't. And I still ended up, even though I have more points than this guy and a better record, there was another team that I lose on another tiebreaker. I lose on literally the 3rd tiebreaker in this league, and so I'm on the outside looking in. Third most points.
16 to 17. You'll take that.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Ultimately finished 7th with an asterisk in that league. But what are you going to do? But anyway, just so 16 out of 17. It's a pretty good year. Very happy about that.
And we will get into the thrilling Monday Night Football games in just a moment, but let's jump into waivers first. And we're going to start with the running backs here on Waiver Wired. And we'll start with the Bears starting running back, D'Onta Foreman, at the Browns. Obviously a tough matchup, available in 62% of leagues. He's got Arizona after Cleveland. He's coming off a week, Matthew, where he gets 11 carries for 50 yards. He also catches 2 passes on 3 targets. But as we said earlier, it's just good to know who the guy is in this backfield.
For a long time for this season, we've gotten no clarity on this Bears backfield because just people have been in and out, and so this was the first game I felt like where, listen, all 3 guys are healthy. The offense under Justin Fields is rolling the way they want. They're coming off of a win. Foreman is back healthy. They've got Herbert and Roschon Johnson. All 3 guys have played this year at various times. The coaching staff knows what they have with all 3 guys. And then D'Onta Foreman goes out, gets 56% of the snaps. He gets 11 rushing attempts and 2 receptions. So 13 touches compared with 4 combined for the other 2 guys. So 3-to-1 touches compared with the other 2 guys. So it is clear that D'Onta Foreman is your Bears starting running back when all 3 guys are healthy. He's had 5 games this year with at least 13 touches. He's averaging over 15 fantasy points per game in those games. And now he gets the Cleveland Browns, who prior to Week 14, they were allowing 5.1 yards per carry for the previous 3 games. So it's not a great matchup, but beggars can't be choosers. And I'm just telling you, if there's a running back on the waiver wire in Week 15, that's going to get 15 touches on a reasonably productive offense, that's somebody you want to go get. And so D'Onta Foreman, my number one pick this week.
Yeah, and the Cleveland defense is a monster overall, but against the run, to your point about the 5.1 yards per carry, since week 7, in terms of rushing defense efficiency, they're 21st in the NFL. And just in terms of their overall defense, Chicago's had a better defense than Cleveland since week 7. So even though this is a tough matchup, I think we're a little biased just because of how well Cleveland started the season. Think back to that game against Pittsburgh in like week 2 where the rushing defense was just an absolute monster. Hasn't really been that unit for a while. So this is a team that you can run on at the moment.
Yeah, Foreman's available in 62% of Yahoo leagues. Our threshold is for this week is for 40%, just because again we have less teams candidly paying attention at this point. So so we're just trying to give you guys all the names of everyone that is out there still playing and looking for a playoff victory. But Foreman is out there in over 62% of leagues because I think people were like, well, he was dropped, he was injured, and then they had the bye, and then who knows if he's the guy, and then they come back and yep, he is the guy, and so there you go, D'Onta Foreman, number one.
Now, the storyline of this week is that a lot of backfields have injury question marks. It's early in the week. We don't know the status of a lot of different starters. But let's take a look at the Week 15 injury contingent running back waiver targets. And what we mean by this is you look at Minnesota, as we see Ty Chandler at the top. Matthew Alexander Madison injures the ankle. So obviously if Madison is down, Chandler would be your top guy out of this group. Brian Robinson is dealing with an injury with Washington. We know Kansas City had to lean on Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week. And then Josh Jacobs left the game last week for the Raiders, meaning Zamir White could be in play as well.
Yeah, against the Chargers on Thursday night. That's a short week as well. What we decided to do, because it's Tuesday at noon on the cock, and we decided to basically say, like, okay, let's assume the starting running backs on all those teams are out once again, that Alexander Madison's out, that Brian Robinson's out, that Josh Jacobs is out, that Isaiah Pacheco is out, et cetera, right? And so if we knew all of them are out, how would we rank them? And that's how we've ranked them. But the truth of the matter is that we just don't know. So obviously if Isaiah Pacheco were in fact back, but Josh Jacobs isn't playing on Thursday, you'd prefer Zamir White to Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon. That's how we've ranked them as well. It's worth noting, I'll just say this. There's literally no motivation for the Raiders to bring back Josh Jacobs. You know what I mean? Like this, it's a lost season. It's a short week. Josh Jacobs is one of the toughest guys out there, wants to play, and contract situation may impact his thought process. Who knows? But it just feels like, whereas with Minnesota, they probably need Madison back. Brian Robinson, I mean, he's got a hammy, but it's not like he's been shot, which he's also come back from. So that's a guy that obviously wants to get out there as well. If Brian Robinson can't go, it would be Antonio Gibson and Chris Rodriguez against the Rams on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think with Josh Jacobs, he did play through injury at the end of last year, which was a meaningless season, but he was chasing the rushing title. And I think he kind of pushed it to get that, whereas this year he's not chasing the rushing title.
Year.
Contract
now
year.
It's another contract year, but still.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be as incentivized to push it. With Ty Chandler, it's an interesting one because that whole offense is just in flux, but it's such a favorable matchup against Cincinnati, who have just struggled against the run all season. Now, they were a bit better last week against Zach Moss, but Braden Smith was out. Colts were a bit banged up, but he is probably the one who is most interesting, just because there's no one else there.
Oh, and also, by the way, I think he's better than Alexander Madison. I think that even if Alexander Madison is healthy, Ty Chandler still has a role. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have him at 2. He still has a role. I mean, like, he's had at least 3 receptions in 2 of the past 3 games. To your point, they're looking at this entire offense. What can we do to shake things up? Chandler has given them a burst when he's gotten an opportunity as well. And so if Madison is out, or even if he's less than 100%, I think Chandler still has a role, even if Madison is 100%. You see it there. 56% of the snaps with Ty Chandler. He got 83% after Madison left with that ankle injury, but still prior to Madison leaving, they were both playing. Ty Chandler gets some involvement as well. Whereas like somebody like CEH, if Pacheco's back, CEH isn't seeing the field. McKinnon would have more of a role there. He did outscore McKinnon, by the way, outscored CEH in Week 14. He's had now double-digit fantasy points in 2 of the past 3. We saw this last year down the stretch. They like him. He's very efficient. He doesn't get a ton of touches, but they like him in 2-minute. They like him in passing situations. They're not scared to use him at the goal line. So, I mean, McKinnon becomes kind of interesting. He's just more of a tightrope guy because, again, he's going to get like 6 to 8 touches, and he needs to score on one of them to really pay off. But given the Chiefs don't have a lot of other guys that can score, like it's better chances than not.
Yep. And also with Ty Chandler, you know who the other guy who was getting work when Alexander Mattison went down? It's the great CJ Ham, who is not going to get 15 carries in a game. So I think that'll be very much Ty Chandler's backfield.
Let's recap Barry's Week 15 top running back waiver targets. D'Onta Foreman, who we started with, he's available in 62% of leagues. He's at the top, followed by Ty Chandler, who we think can get some work even if Mattison does play through the ankle injury, followed by Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Zamir White. Keep in mind, all of these guys are injury contingent. Tyjae Spears, Chase Brown, and Rico Dowdle, who, Matthew, those last three, we've seen them finally get some work. Dowdle and Brown look like an actual thing in their backfields, and Spears has been because of his pass-catching ability.
Spears had a monster game last night. We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up as well. But again, we've talked about this in terms of roster construction. I would rather, if I had Tony Pollard, if I had Joe Mixon, if I had Derrick Henry and I was heading to the playoffs, I would rather those guys. I would rather the backup than saying like, well, what about Foreman or Antonio Gibson? Because there's a chance that if something were to happen to Henry, at least you know, okay, I've got the starting running back of the Titans, as opposed to like, well, I sure hope Brian Robinson stays out so I can use Antonio Gibson again, or that, Ty Chandler gets more work than, the one exception might be Foreman, but still, the Bengals, the Cowboys, and the Bengals and Cowboys specifically are better offenses than the Bears. You'd rather just make sure you've solidified that starting running back for those offenses. So that's what I think it's important to understand your needs as you head into waivers tonight in terms of the playoffs. Are you trying to fortify an open hole, or are you just like, hey, let me just make sure that no matter what happens during this playoff run, I'm set?
Jay, I thought Chase Brown looked really good, finally involved in the Cincinnati offense. Just a different gear than what they've had coming out of that backfield with Mixon.
He looked fantastic, and he really broke the game open for them, kind of shades of when Jaylen Warren comes into a game, when Keaton Mitchell is coming into the game initially, just an extra burst in an offense that the Jake Browning is fascinating to me because he's looked fantastic the past 2 weeks, but it's all been yak. Like his average depth of target is 5.6 yards, which is by far the lowest in the NFL. I think the next lowest is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's at like 6.4. So it is all yak, it's all short stuff, it's all screens, and Chase Brown can take advantage of that.
He's averaging 10 touches per game over the last 2 weeks. It's clear that, they were Chris Evans, Chase Brown, they were just kind of dancing around this. Travion Williams got a little bit of run, but Chase Brown is clearly the guy in Cincinnati behind Joe Mixon under this new look Jake Browning offense.
How real do you think Jake Browning is?
I think he's a competent backup because he's accurate and he's calm, and Zach Taylor actually knows how to scheme up an offense that's backup quarterback friendly.
Do you think so? He was terrible against the Steelers, frankly, and then the past 2 games against Jacksonville and the Colts, neither who have great defenses, he was fantastic. Now he gets this Vikings defense, which shouldn't be good, but is really good because I think Brian Flores and all the confusing coverages and zone blitzes and everything, do you think he'll struggle with that?
I don't, because I think the way you beat the blitz is by getting the ball out in the short game, and that's exactly what he does. So it's weird to think that about a backup quarterback that has some limitations, but his strengths play against what Flores is trying to do.
And I may get this dead wrong, but wasn't he a 4-year starter at Washington? Yeah. So he's a 4-year starter at Washington, and he's been in Cincinnati at least 3 seasons, right?
Yeah, he's had time to be in that room.
So I guess my point is like he's not your typical backup in the sense that he's probably played more NFL. He's probably played more total football between college and the pros than like Mitch Trubisky has. I off the top of my head, I could be wrong on that, but Trubisky played only 13 games at North Carolina, and then he's been in and out. But you understand? And whether I get that right or wrong, the point is that I think Browning is probably more ready for this moment than other backups might be.
He's very decisive. We'll say that. He never looks unsure. He just hits his read.
Yeah, coaches want backups that just do what they're told to do, and that's the Jake Browning experience.
And I'll just say this. When you asked him, and Connor was just like, he's a competent backup, I like that you looked directly at Jay when you said that. Thank you very much.
He asked the question, I gave the answer.
Question, but you looked right at Jay.
There are lots of similarities between me and Jake Browning.
You are very confident. You've been in the system for a while.
Yeah, Matthew's out today.
I can get the ball to Jamar Chase.
Jay will do whatever we tell him to do.
100%.
I love Yak. Big Yak guy.
Big Yak guy.
Well, speaking of that, waiver wire wide receivers.
Free game. came in as the host. Michael was out sick.
Some compared me to Jake Browning.
Yeah, it was a Browning-esque performance.
Multifaceted, a lot of jobs.
Multifaceted. Remind me to get you a box for all your family to watch you host next time.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm going
you
to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Wide receivers, we're starting with Odell Beckham, who we've been talking about the last couple weeks simply because he looks like vintage Odell Beckham. In Jay's words, it looks like he has a Giants jersey on out there. Available in 58% of leagues. He's got Jacksonville here on Sunday Night Football. Week 14 against the Rams, 10 targets. Only caught 4 of them, but it doesn't matter because he went for 97 yards and made that great adjustment down the field, Jay. Beckham he looks healthy finally, and there's a real connection here with Lamar.
He does. There was a little concern about the shoulder injury against Cincinnati a few weeks ago, but that seems to have been dispelled. I think the key here is that Lamar Jackson's just chucking it down the field. Like, he's launching it. Average after target over 12 yards against the Rams. Now he gets a very favorable matchup against the Jacksonville defense that has been shredded by Jake Browning and Joe Flacco, and now it's Lamar Jackson coming into town. So I think Odell should be rostered everywhere.
To your point, over the last 4 weeks, the Jags allowed the second most yards per game to wide receivers. And since week 9, Odell Beckham Jr. is averaging 13.5 fantasy points per game. He's had at least 5 receptions of 20 or more yards in each of his last 3 games. To your point about them chucking it down the field, like, those are some stats that back up exactly what you're saying here. Lamar looks great, and clearly, in a game in which they needed to, it was the first game all season that Ravens were down in the third quarter. Like, after the third quarter, like, they were throwing, and like, it was kind of, I don't want to say seasons on the line, but like, it was an important game for the Ravens to win, and they kept looking for OBJ. 10 targets last week. That's a season high for him. So he's our number 1 wide receiver pickup if he's out there in your league.
Yep. All right, let's look at Barry's Week 15 top wide receiver waiver targets, including Odell Beckham at the top, of course, but followed by Josh Downs, Curtis Samuel, Zay Jones, Joshua Palmer, who we'll spend more time on in just 1 second, Jonathan Mingo, who is just a staple of the show at this point, Wan'Dale Robinson, who looked really good last night, and Cedrick Wilson. Barry, I want to get to Joshua Palmer because he's been on IR. He was estimated to have a full practice on Monday after he's missed the last 6 games with the knee injury. The good news is he's got Vegas. The bad news is it's a short week, and it's going to be the Easton Stick experience.
Yeah, but they're going to the Raiders actually have a pretty good run defense. Over the last month, the Raiders are a top 10 run defense, right? And so Eckler, I know he was a little bit better last week, but it's been a tough run here for Eckler during this season, and I don't think he's 100% healthy, Austin Eckler, just from what I don't know anything. I'm just saying, like, it just from the eye test, he doesn't look like the Austin Eckler we've seen previously. So I think they're going to have to let Easton Stick sling it a little bit. And so Josh Palmer, who in his 4 healthy games prior to injury was averaging 13.4 fantasy points per game. Really, no one has emerged other than Keenan Allen. Like, I know Quentin Johnson got the one big play last week, but really it's kind of been mix and match and hope. And, there hasn't been a lot of consistency outside of Keenan Allen in that passing attack for the Chargers. So I could think Josh Palmer, who's a veteran, who's been in that system for a while, could suddenly see a decent amount of volume here. He's a talented player, too.
Yep. There's just no other human beings on this team.
Right.
Like, it's just necessity is the mother of invention here. And look, Keenan Allen's on pace to break the Chargers' all-time receptions record, and that's kind of a reflection. Oh, he already has broken it this season, so it's insane.
And I'm just throwing this out there. So Keenan Allen, one of the toughest dudes in the NFL, no doubt, but he said he's playing with a AC joint sprain, right?
And I think he has a heel. Lots going on.
If they're shutting down Justin Herbert for the year, and it's clear the Chargers aren't making the playoffs. I know they haven't mathematically eliminated, but like
they're out.
They're out,
yeah.
right?
And the staff won't be back.
Right? I mean, exactly. I mean, like, why are you? If now that Allen's gotten that record, like, if you're Keenan Allen, if you're the Chargers front office, why are you playing him?
Brandon Staley needs to save his job for a couple of feel-good wins.
Yes, I don't think there's anything. I mean, Staley can do to save his job, candidly. But I don't know. If I had Keenan Allen, I might be a little bit nervous. I'm not saying he's not playing. That Keenan Allen's not playing Thursday. I think he does play Thursday. But I'm just saying, like, as we get further down the, like.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
This
be
is
surprised
a guy that's not 100% healthy. He's a wide receiver on the other age of 30. Like.
A report could pop up anytime that Keenan Allen's he's out for the season. I wouldn't be surprised by that. And then at that point, Josh Palmer's a wide receiver 1 on an NFL team.
And that is where I was leading. Thank you, Jay Crouch.
No worries, Matthew Berry. That's what Jake Browning does.
It's exactly right. You're a competent backup.
You also saw Wan'Dale Robinson on that list at number 7. He's available in 91% of leagues. Really nice game on Monday Night Football against the Packers. Wan'Dale, 6 catches, 79 yards. Also involved in the running game. We know what kind of gadget player he is. 2 carries for 36 yards. And Jay, the most important thing is DeVito just looks comfortable going Wan'Dale's way out of the slot.
He certainly does. The first pass that we showed down the left sideline, I'm not sure that was the right throw to make, but it got there in the end. The second one, that was absolutely the throw to make. It effectively won them the game. I don't really understand this Giants passing offense, and Jalen Hyatt is a monster. A week ago, last night, he's 2 for 13, but Wan'Dale, he's got the talent. He's coming off the ACL. He looks fully healthy, 100%. And Tommy DeVito, he showed a raised floor for what he can do for a passing offense last night.
Look, I have long been obsessed with Wan'Dale Robinson. And I've talked about him a lot. Again, they used a second-round pick on him. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll used a second-round pick on Wan'Dale Robinson. A lot of these guys, Jalen Hyatt, obviously they drafted this year, but a lot of these guys they sort of inherited, and they're trying to do it. But Wan'Dale Robinson's somebody they went out and actually actively drafted when they had Kadarius Toney, who was in some ways a similar player, on their roster. And obviously they got rid of Kadarius Toney. I wonder why. But they like Wan'Dale Robinson there in New York, and we've just sort of been waiting for this. We've been waiting for the breakout. I feel like I've been talking about him honestly off and on all season. I definitely didn't talk about him before last night. I'm not claiming that I did. We were sort of like, we'll see what happens here. But I guess my point is I don't think it's a fluke in the sense that I think the kid's talented and I know they like him. And it felt like they're trying to feature him a little bit more. Over the last 2 games that we've seen Wan'Dale Robinson play, he's got a 27% target share. And maybe some of that is Daboll, some of that's health, some of that's Tommy DeVito. But Wan'Dale Robinson kind of becoming a thing here for a competent passing attack in New York.
Yep, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Rams, Philadelphia. That's the close. None of those pass defenses are intimidating.
Especially against the slot. Philadelphia especially, that's where you love to tackle the Eagles.
The final player there, Cedrick Wilson. You see him. We'll talk more when we recap Monday Night Football. Obviously, a lot of his usage is dependent on the status of Tyreek Hill going into the Jets game.
Yeah, but when Tyreek Hill, we'll talk about this more, but when Hill went out, Wilson was clearly the guy that sort of went in to replace him. Last one there, so you go OBJ, for people that are just listening, OBJ, Josh Palmer, Josh Downs, Curtis Samuel, Zay Jones, Jonathan Mingo is his name-o. You should try that with your daughters. Do a little...
Just that no?
Yeah, no, M-I-N-G-O, 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 Mingo is his name-o.
Okay, yeah, and I'll take that advice on board.
His under-receiving prop is the game-o?
Yes, exactly.
Come on! Come on!
Yeah, that's why Connor's the starter.
That is why, over there. And then, of course, Wan'Dale Robinson and Cedrick Wilson. The one last thing I want to just mention here is Zay Jones, and not because we love Zay Jones. He's available in 71% of leagues, but Zay Jones reminds me of Zay Flowers. We're going to quarterbacks, right?
Yes, we are going.
So Zay Jones reminds me of Zay Flowers, who plays for Baltimore, and Zay Jones actually plays against Baltimore this week. Well, big breaking news. Pete, you got to carve out 10 minutes for us. But
good luck, Pete.
For this, the Ravens are signing Malik Cunningham off the Patriots practice squad and onto their roster.
Stealthy.
Quarterback controversy?
Yeah,
Lamar?
Right, yeah. Is Lamar definitely the starter? Is he playing for his job this week?
People are wondering.
I'm not saying it. Some people are saying. The mainstream media doesn't want you to know that Malik Cunningham was, held back in New England.
No. Felt like it was going to.
Now, when you sign from a practice squad to an active roster, he's going to be around for a couple of games.
Yeah.
That is a weird one, right?
Right.
I wonder if they feel like
different role. I don't think it's to be a quarterback.
Is it not? I mean, I was going to say.
That's my guess.
Do you think it's it's something with Huntley, or is it quarterback depth, or or maybe it is some sort of
special
gadget
teams
roles,
and a backup.
But they're signing him to the roster, so. It feels like we'll get into quarterbacks, and we are not recommending you pick up Bailey Zappi, but it does feel like Bailey Zappi's earned some more job security.
No breathing down his neck anymore.
Right? I mean, he led the team to a victory last week.
He certainly did.
No Malik Cunningham, Mac Jones has been benched. It's all coming up Bailey Zappi.
Welcome to
the Zappi Hour, of course. Let's jump into the quarterbacks here, and we start with Matthew Stafford. Of course, Matthew against the Commanders. He's available in 43% of leagues. We know the feast that is the Commanders' defense right now. Stafford coming off week against Baltimore, where Jay throws for 3 touchdowns, 294 yards. Felt like he just kept answering the bell in this game, as we've seen big moments from Stafford his entire career.
I mean, he went blow for blow with Lamar Jackson playing at an MVP level in this game, and for much of it, Stafford was the better quarterback, I think. And the key, I think, is just the connection that he reestablished with Cooper Kupp. Like that touchdown pass, that's just like vintage 2021 Stafford to Kupp. And I think just Kupp getting back to that level is just so key for Stafford because, I mean, Kupp carried Stafford all through that 21 season. Now Puka Nakua's there. Offensive line is playing much better than expected. Like all of a sudden, this offense is absolutely loaded. And Stafford could absolutely be a top 10 quarterback the rest of the way.
10 touchdown passes in the last 3 games. He's had 3 straight with 22 or more fantasy points. When we talk on Friday with Denny Carter about the regression files, Stafford was the guy that came up a couple of weeks ago saying, like, hey, there's no way he's throwing this few touchdown passes. His career touchdown rate is much higher than it has been. It's just going to regress to the positive. And that was a great call by Denny. And that has been the case the last 3 weeks. And you couldn't ask for a better matchup than my very giving Washington Commanders. Get this. Since week 4, every quarterback that's faced the Commanders other than one has thrown at least 2 touchdown passes. The last 4 quarterbacks to face Washington have all scored at least 19 fantasy points. Stafford's at home. Ron Rivera's calling the defense.
Playoffs on the line for the Rams.
Playoffs on the line for the Rams. Nothing's on the line for the Commanders except a better draft pick. Commanders, you guys know what to do. Keep it close, but let's not get crazy. Yep. Let's not win this game.
The beauty is the one thing the Commanders can do is actually defend the run a little bit as well. So this is going to be, I think, a passing attack. I think the Rams should be bigger than 6.5 point favorites here, to be honest.
Listen, it was an up and down week for love-hate last week. I'm not going to lie. It was one of my rougher weeks, but Matthew Stafford will be on the love list this week, just so you know. Just so you know, we're going back to it. We're going back to the well there.
Some other quarterback waiver targets, and boy, did we have a long combo on our pre-show call about this. But we land on Joe Flacco, available in 93% of leagues. He's against the Bears defense that has really come to life recently. But Flacco's looked good. And then Jake Browning, who is a hot topic on this show at all times, against Brian Flores' Vikings defense, available in 73% of leagues.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday as well, but Kevin Stefanski coming out saying Joe Flacco is his guy for the rest of the year. You don't love the matchup with Chicago. Bears have played really good, but then he's at Houston, home to the Jets on Thursday night, at Cincinnati. So, 2 of the 4, but yes, hashtag revenge game against the Jets. He's played 2 games with the Browns. He's had at least 44 pass attempts in both. He's averaging over 18 fantasy points per game. And so, again, is it ideal? No. But if you just lost Justin Herbert and you're in a 2 quarterback league, can you get a little wacko for Flacco? Yes, I think you can.
The good thing about Flacco, too, is that for all his sins are fantasy friendly because he, to use a quote from myself yesterday, he just hoofs the ball downfield.
Yes, he does.
He loves a good hoof, Joe Flacco.
He's not alone in that.
And also now, with the way Njoku is playing, and Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper back healthy, they have weapons.
They do.
And they seem to have confidence. I mean, throwing the ball on 4th and 3 for that touchdown pass, even though it was completely wide open, but still, they seem to have a certain level of confidence in Flacco to air it out.
Yeah. As always, look at my rankings, look at everyone else's rankings on rotoworld.com in terms of where we rank all these guys. So, I'm not starting Joe Flacco over an established starter that got you to the playoffs, but you could be in a Superflex league and desperate. Yeah. You just lost Herbert. So.
A psychotic league like ours.
And and Stafford's gone.
Right. So, It gets tough real quick. How about tight ends over here? And we'll go back to the Ravens offense with Isaiah Likely against Jacksonville, available in 45% of leagues. Sunday night football game for Isaiah Likely here on NBC and Peacock. 7 targets, 5 catches, 83 yards, and most importantly, Matthew, the touchdown in the game against the Rams early in this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a beautiful play, and the fact that this wasn't like a typical tight end touchdown where it's 3 yards out and they fake it to the running back and he scrambles out and he just hits a tight in the end zone. This was a long play. You look at it. Isaiah Likely's in motion, running across the field. They don't pick him up. He is wide open. It's busted coverage, but still, he's running down the field. Lamar Jackson hits him. He gets into the end zone. That's the athleticism that Isaiah Likely brings to this offense. 11 of the 13 targets that he's had over the last 2 games have come from the slot. They move him around. They get him in good matchups here. And over the last 4 weeks, the Jaguars, who he plays this week, have allowed the 7th most receptions to the slot. So Isaiah Likely, who, again, 45% available. He doesn't totally meet our threshold. We're saying 40% today, so he does. But if he's out there, he's the starting tight end with talent, with a very good quarterback and a good offense around him.
And Jay, because of that 40% threshold, Darren Waller does make the cut at exactly 40% available, and he said he hopes to play Week 15, so we might see the long-awaited Waller-DeVito connection against the Saints.
It's been a tough year for Darren Waller. Just hasn't really happened after
a couple years.
Yeah, after he came into the season as a consensus top 5 tight end. But with the way DeVito played, and I think just the manner in which DeVito does play, where just with that offensive line, like he's looking to get it out quick, he's looking to take off. I think it should be a good connection with Darren Waller.
Yeah. When he's seen 8 targets this year, he's averaging over 17 fantasy points per game. And given the lack of weapons, all due respect, I would think Waller would go right back to being a focal point of the passing attack.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about Wan'Dale Robinson having success with DeVito out of the slot. Well, Darren Waller is going to be the power slot.
Yep.
So, all right, let's look at some other tight end waiver targets here. We brought up Isaiah Likely and Darren Waller. How about Jarrett, Everett, Chig, Okonkwo, Tucker Kraft, Tanner Hudson in the deeper cuts here, as well as Tyler Higbee and Davis Allen against the Commanders.
We don't know who's going to be the starting tight end for the Rams. Higbee was out last week. If he's back, I think he's interesting. But if not, Davis Allen seemed to have a little bit of a connection. Again, we really like Stafford in that matchup at home against the Commanders. But going higher up on the list, especially, by the way, with Easton Stick under center, and again, not really having a lot of other weapons, Gerald Everett becomes pretty interesting against the Raiders. Chig Okonkwo had a nice game last night. Feels it's finally starting to happen for Okonkwo the way we thought it would at the beginning of the year. It's taken quite a while, but he's starting to become viable as well. And, you know, as long as Luke Musgrave is out, it's clear that Kraft is going to be a part of this Packers offense. We like ourselves some Tanner Hudson. I feel like the Bengals found something in him, and clearly there's a connection between Hudson and Jake Browning.
If you need a defense, we got some waiver targets to stream here. The Colts against Mitch Trubisky and the Steelers are available at 58%. The Chargers against the Raiders, 69% available. The Raiders against the Chargers, that's Easton Stick game, 92% available. The Bengals against the Vikings are 75% available. And finally, the Bears against the Browns, Joe Flacco, 95% available. And of course, if you wanted to pick someone up that we mentioned today, you probably have to make a tough decision with a droppable player. So we have Josh Dobbs on here, Dameon Pierce, Khalil Herbert, now that being D'Onta Foreman's backfield, Jacoby Myers, Christian Kirk, and Jerry Jeudy, Matthew.
Yeah. By the way, also Justin Herbert, now that we have the news that he is officially out for the year.
Or some out.
You can certainly feel free to say goodbye to him in redraft leagues.
We're going to take our first break. When we're back, we're recapping the 2 huge Monday Night Football upsets. Tommy DeVito madness is taking over the Northeast, fellas. Tommy Cutlets. We'll be back after this.
It was a lot of pain, man. It sucked when it actually happened. You know, I obviously been dealing with some ankle injuries this whole season, and you know, when it happened, like my first reaction was like, man, my ankle gone. Then my adrenaline kicked in. I ran off the field. And then I sat for a while and got stiff. I was just going through a lot of pain, man. So then I just made up in my mind. I came in at halftime. I texted my wife. I was like, bro, like, this shit hurt. Like, get an ankle massage tonight. She was like, you better get your ass back in that game, dog. And I was like, all right. So I just made up my mind that it's going to hurt. It's going to suck tonight and tomorrow morning.
That was Tyreek Hill after the Dolphins game on his ankle injury. Riveting stuff from Tyreek Hill, as always. In all seriousness, Matthew, huge injury with fantasy implications. Yeah. And came back really late. He was out for a long time. Obviously not fully effective, wasn't on the field for the final drive of the game. And we talked about it in waivers. Cedrick Wilson kind of becomes a little bit of a thing here if Tyreek Hill is down for any notable games going forward.
Yeah, specific to that, I mean, Tua looked for him. Like Cedrick Wilson, I thought, made some nice catches. We've seen Cedrick Wilson over the years, you know, have moments with the Cowboys and then hasn't done much since he came over to the Dolphins. Hasn't really had an opportunity here, but
Barrios plays over him.
Yeah, I mean, but feels like a little bit of a 1-for-1 if Tyreek, not that he's going to be Tyreek, but you do want a piece of that offense, at least on most days. The crazy part of here is that he was playing basically on one ankle. He missed the majority of this game, and he still finished 4 for 61. I mean, that's what's so stupid. Like, it's just like, he's just ridiculous as well. You know, look, we just have to remain and wait and see, but I think it was a weird thing, right? Because, like, he's clearly less than 100%, but he didn't get taped up. He didn't get wrapped. You know,
taped and then untaped.
Right.
Yeah. And then helmet off next to McDaniel. He's not out there at the start of the half. He comes late into the half, and then he comes into the game and makes some big plays.
He gets some text from his wife.
Yeah, apparently a lot of texting with the wife.
Right.
Motivated him to play.
Get back out there. Yeah.
Right. There's a whole lot going on.
I just don't understand what the hell the injury is. Like, how do you sprint off the field after you do it? He looks 100% when he's out there, but he wasn't there to start the final drive, and then he comes in late. He's been dealing with this ankle thing on and off, as he says.
Yes, he has.
He's become, and I know you hate your basketball references, Matthew, but he's like Anthony Davis now, where it's like he goes to the locker room, he gets half hurt every single game, but he's always just kind of fine. But I don't know what this mechanic is. I don't understand the injury. I don't understand the usage. But I mean, he was fine when he was out there, and so I guess that he's probably just going to be fine going forward, but short week, we'll see.
Right, and by the way, they play the Jets.
Right.
Now, in a normal situation, it doesn't matter who he's playing because he's Tyreek Hill. But, if he's less than 100% and now he's got to face DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, like, that's not ideal. Now, again, we've seen them face before. Tyreek Hill was fine.
Yeah.
But it's just not out of the woods yet, so we remain in hope and hope he's okay. But this is one of those things that we were talking about this on the call before the show, right? Which is just basically like anything wouldn't shock me. If we got a notification, Tyreek Hill's fine, he's active, and he goes, 6 for 102 touchdowns, wouldn't shock me. Or he completely ruptured his ankle and he's done for the nothing would surprise me that we learn in the next couple of days about Tyreek Hill here.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that you might think give him an extra week with the Jets, but I mean they could lose this game to the Jets. They're only 8.5-point favorites. The line's come down from 12.5 before the Dolphins lost. And then after that, the way the Dolphins they finish their season, it's Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo. If they lose this game, they are no lock to make the playoffs even. And then Tyreek Hill has the entire offseason to rest because he won't be doing anything in January. So they really need to win this game. And so I suspect if he is able to go, and the way he was talking about it, he's like, it's going to hurt tonight, it's going to hurt tomorrow. Feels like this is just something that he's dealt with all season. So I would guess that he's probably going to go, but who knows? Because I don't know what this injury is.
But certainly in a win and get in week in fantasy, for many fantasy managers out there, week 14 was I need to win to get into the playoffs, and you've been riding Tyreek Hill all season long. Tough week for this to happen. Again, 4 for 61 isn't a bad day at the office, but it's not what you've been counting on from Tyreek Hill. And so the whole game offensively was kind of a disappointment, with the exception of Raheem Mostert, who gets
2 touchdowns.
All that and a bag of fantasy goodness, right? He's now had at least 20 touches in 3 of the past 4. He leads the NFL with 18 touchdowns this season. He's the new Jamal Williams, except he's like a lot better and faster.
Yeah.
But 18 touchdowns is just an unbelievable feat for Raheem Mostert, and we've still got 4 weeks to go. That's the crazy part. 18 touchdowns with 4 weeks to go for Raheem Mostert. Raheem the Dream, friend of the podcast, friend of the show. Hasn't been really involved in the passing attack, but he was the runner we wanted, not Devon Achane. But
No.
Go ahead.
To be fair, Achane was inches away from what would have been like an 80-yard touchdown
Correct.
pass. That he was right there. He beat his man. They just didn't hook up for it. So if he just catches that, it looks a lot different.
He still ends the week as running back 24. Not what you hoped for, but certainly usable as well. 7 for 47. He also catches 5 balls for 24. They're using him more in the passing game as well. He was targeted on 41% of the routes he ran last night against the Titans. So, I think, look, Mostert and Achane are obviously must-starts every single week, and especially if Tyreek Hill is going to be out or miss any kind of time, they'd lean on him even more. But, yeah, good day at the office for Raheem Mostert, who literally dragged people into fantasy playoffs and in one league kept me out.
On the Titans side of things, huge upset for them, led by Will Levis, led by their backfield, and, of course, DeAndre Hopkins. Matthew, we'll start with the backfield. Derrick Henry kind of plows into the end zone twice, but I think it was Tyjae Spears in the passing game that was the storyline of this backfield.
Unbelievable. And it's super weird because, again, Tyjae Spears was the better runner. We'll talk about the passing in a second, but you see it there, 17 for 29 on the ground for Tyjae Spears versus 17 for 34 on the ground for Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry gets you the 2 rushing touchdowns, so he bails you out with that. But the truth is that, he just looks slow. Derrick Henry did, and wasn't able to get any separation. There's more wiggle, more burst to Tyjae Spears. And one of the reasons why we like Tyjae Spears, he was on my love list this week as others receiving votes. We talked him up in the preview yesterday. Look, they were 14-point underdogs, basically. 2 touchdown underdogs in this game. We figured they're going to be down. Tyjae Spears is the passing down back. They'll be throwing a lot in catch-up mode. Now, ended up not happening until the final 4 minutes.
It didn't happen.
But that last drive, those basically 2 last drives made Tyjae Spears' night as well. So just he's now had 6 targets in back-to-back games, an 18% target share in both games, goes ultimately 6 for 89 on this day, and they play Houston next week, which is not a scary matchup for Tyjae Spears. Again, I think he's a viable flex with obviously massive RB1 upside if Henry were to miss any time.
Yep. I think the other story is just Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins. Will Levis, who'd never thrown for more than 262 yards in any of his first 6 starts, he goes for 327. And Connor and I were texting about this, Matthew, the thread that you're not a part of.
Right.
It's just the abandon that he has physically, the way he plays the game. I mean, it's kind of reckless and it's a little bit scary the way that he just runs into dudes like he's Josh Allen. But he has to be the highest variance quarterback play to play. He can do anything on a given play. He can throw a pick 6 out in his own end zone, can throw the ball behind Derrick Henry, can also just hit lasers for 45 yards. He's
jump over people, run through people.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I mean, not that he's Josh Allen, but like he's a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean, like I interviewed him and stood next to him, and I'm like, I was looking up. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, and 198. You know, I'm working on it. I'm getting there. But in the morning, I'm like 198.
Yes.
By the end of the day, after I've eaten a couple bags of popcorn, it's I'm 2 bills. But Will Levis had me pretty easily.
He's jacked.
He's absolutely jacked. By the way, the pride of Madison, Connecticut, right here in our home state. So I'm a Will Levis fan, and so I'm thrilled for him. The other thing that's crazy about Will Levis is that again, he's so jacked and so powerful. Like there were a couple of times where just because of the way the rush went, like he was throwing flat-footed. Like he can he doesn't need to lean into throws. Like he can just you know what I mean?
That's exactly what it looks like.
I mean, no, stop it. But my point is that screw you, Jay Connor. Yeah, Jay, my point is that a normal quarterback steps into the throw and throws. Yeah. And my point is Will Levis is strong. There were throws last night where he was like this, and it's like
he's off platform.
It's like
Josh Allen.
It's all arm.
Yeah.
It's all arm and waist. There's no leg movement, and it was still zipping because he's literally got a laser for an arm.
Yep. And Hopkins going 7 for 124 on the touchdown, the big beneficiary. He's the only guy in that passing offense you want.
The Monday Night Football doubleheader was headlined by the young quarterbacks, Will Levis with the upset against the Dolphins, and of course, North Jersey's very own.
What a crazy comeback, though. Just very curious. I know we're supposed to get back up.
Poor Tommy DeVito. He's getting no time.
We'll talk. Believe me, we're going to talk plenty of Tommy DeVito. But what was the live line? I'm fascinated because I didn't look. What was the live line when the Dolphins were up 14? Right, or the 14 to 13.
Was about 4:30 left.
Yeah.
So the live line was nothing because it got turned off because the game was effectively over, and so the books just turned the money line off. I would say that the true odds there are about 200 to 1. When you're a 14-point favorite at home, and the team is they struggled on offense really. It's Will Levis on the other side. Yeah, I would have said 200 to 1.
Right, with 5 minutes to go or whatever.
And also,
it was.
they won in regulation. They didn't even need overtime.
Crazy town. Yeah. All right.
In a bit of a different game, the Giants upset the Packers at home, and it was really the Tommy DeVito
Oh, by the way,
show.
the Tyjae Spears over hit. Thank you very much. There you go.
A cutlet above
nice.
from the post. That's just phenomenal. Let's
go.
Tommy DeVito. This is his family tailgating. They brought the chicken cutlets. It looks like they brought some meat to balls. I mean, they really... There's Tommy DeVito's agent.
Oh, no.
That's Sean Stiletto. And people that think this is he dressed like this because the DeVito... No, Sean is dressed like this. This is him. It's authentic. It's real. It's awesome. So the Tommy DeVito craze. There's his agent, Sean Stiletto, with Tommy DeVito's family.
Yeah.
They're kissing. They're doing the celebrations.
Hey.
Love it. Just DeVito madness.
That guy doesn't even know that.
Yeah,
guy,
he's
right?
like,
the
sure.
dad's just kissing random man in the stands.
Yes.
Oh, man, it's just phenomenal. He's got his own celebration.
The whole thing. It's become a whole thing.
The tweets were wild. Kevin Clark had a great one. It said, every other sport is absolutely desperate to generate stars, and the NFL is like, the Giants have an Italian guy, and it's a national story. I love this sport. I love this country.
Yeah, well done by Kevin Clark. Very good tweet. I like that. And then
backup producer Pete.
Wow, running his own stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. Pete, self-promotion. But he tweets at Kevin, the average New York sports fan could pick Tommy DeVito out of a lineup, but couldn't tell you what sport Connor McDavid plays. That is, as a hockey fan, that's very true.
He's a basketball player.
Anyway, and then that's there's Pete's Twitter account if you'd like to follow at backup producer Pete. at Pete Namalatis. It's a lot of Dexter. It's a lot of like
Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter
chat.
Lawrence stuff. Yeah,
it's
it's very niche. Yeah.
By the way, Christopher Moltisanti, he actually ran for 7 yards a carry last night on the Packers defense.
He's building a
because
giant
they
Italian
are
team.
atrocious.
I mean, in all seriousness, big night for Saquon. Comes in as a top 5 running back with the 2 touchdowns. He survives the fumble. Wan'Dale Robinson, we talked a lot about, and Jayden Reed has a nice night on the Green Bay side of things.
Yeah, I mean, look, on Green Bay side of things, look, Dontavian Wicks gets hurt late in this game. He goes out, and so that's disappointing. Jordan Love, I think, struggled this entire game as well. But it is nice to see they continue to find ways to get the ball in Jayden Reed's hand as well. He had 9 rushing attempts over the past 4 games, including a rushing touchdown in 2 of those 3 games as well. Reed had, went 8 for 27. Whatever, he's the only wide receiver with 8 receptions and fewer than 30 yards, in a game this season. But still, Jayden Reed, kind of a top 20-ish guy. Better days ahead for Jordan Love. Hopefully they get Aaron Jones back next week. We'll be back.
Don't forget, on DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. As we do every Tuesday with producer Pete, back to the futures, Jay.
Backup producer
Pete. What's in the crystal ball?
So in the crystal ball, Connor, is the Los Angeles Rams over 8.5 wins
it.
at plus 135. They've got 6 wins now, so they need to win 3 out of their last 4. Next 3 games, Commanders, home Saints, at Giants. All right, that's done. That's 3 wins there. And even if they drop one of those, the last game is at San Francisco, which is going into the price. But San Francisco may have the 1 seed locked up by then and may not have anything to play for. So that's an extra win that could potentially be banked.
I like it, Jay. I like them to make the playoffs for sure. I'm taking a page out of your playbook here. Same thing, but Ravens over 12.5 wins. Same thing as you said, Jay. They need to win 3 of their last 4. I think they beat Jacksonville this week. Sure, even if they lose to the Niners on Christmas, I think they're a simply much better team than the Dolphins and the Steelers right now. I think the Ravens at 13 wins plus 130. I like those odds. Matthew, what are you closing us out with here?
Kevin Stefanski for Coach of the Year at 14-1. He's won games with 4 different NFL quarterbacks. Their upcoming schedule: Bears, Texans, Jets, Bengals. Like, they could easily go 3-1 in over that stretch, make the playoffs with 4 different quarterbacks, with Joe Flacco off of his bench. Off of his couch, I should say. So Stefanski, who's 14-1, I like him as a Coach of the Year candidate as my future bet. Browns
like it.
In a tough division, by the way.
Yep, like it. They still win that division too.
They absolutely still could. Look, it's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, so you can't stay here. If you made the playoffs, congratulations.
If you're still here, you're
Jay,
nuts.
for Connor, for Matthew, for Tommy Cutlets, and Penn State Blake. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.